So there's houses. Do you like the houses?
My name is Kirsten Dirksen. I used to work in television, but I left it behind to move to Spain, get married, have kids, and start a website with my husband. Though I didn't give up filming, instead, I started posting videos online. At first, no one really noticed them. But then I stumbled on a topic that caught the attention of the entire world. When my parents moved a couple hours north of San Francisco to retire, all of us offspring complained it was too far from the city and too sleepy.
It's funny that my dad thought this was the Gravenstein apple capital.
Then, during one extended summer visit, I started taking my camera out looking for stories.
Look at these apple trees.
On the ground, huh?
On the ground. So.
And I began to discover that their new county, best known for its wineries and agriculture, was an epicenter of a growing underground movement.
It's a pretty house.
That's my favorite. To me, it would make sense to the first name is.
Right. Should I answer that now?
Sure, you can answer that here and then we can move out.
Yeah.
When I went to interview my first tiny house person, I had no idea I was about to enter a parallel universe, and that I would become trapped here for several years to come.
So you just plop this onto property then, or what's the...
Yeah, I've had it in apple orchards. I've had it sitting in front of Whole Foods for days. But generally speaking, wherever I could put a traveler trailer, I could put this.
And it's legal to put it...
Yeah, or at least apparently. To get around building codes, which include minimum size standards, where I'd have to have one room that's 120 square feet, it'd have to be a much larger house to meet code. To get around that, I made it a travel trailer. I've got my little entertaining area over here, which I guess I could probably take these up for the sake of appearing more like I'm ready for guests now. It was raised in a 4,000 square foot house, and my sister and I were in charge of cleaning the house, so that was probably part of my decision too, was just wanting a more luxurious lifestyle. I mean, we couldn't even afford to really heat the house entirely. One other reason why I live small is I prefer quality over quantity, and I really couldn't afford a large house with the kind of features I have in my small house. The desk is where I spend most of my waking hours, and then I have a lot of storage per square foot, because even though it's 100 square feet, I did feel like I wanted some stuff. Here's some more storage space. Gotta have hanging clothes. It took a couple years to really figure out what it is I wanted to get rid of. And so once I had done that, by gradually paring down and living in smaller and smaller houses, I did come to live in a very small house with very little, and I'm totally happy. I don't miss anything at all. Anyway, I've been living in houses of this size and smaller for about 10 years now. I have a really primitive plumbing system in this house, but I usually put in more elaborate plumbing when I design other people's houses. I keep my little fridge under the counter, and I even keep a little toaster oven on top of that. Well, I guess I should mention that there's a bathroom right here. The bathroom is just 2 feet by 4 feet. It's what is called a wet bath, so the bathroom is the shower. It drains straight out the floor. My plumbing is really primitive even for the shower, so it's just a gravity-fed system where the water falls from the loft. And here's the ladder. It usually stores over here, but I pull it out and I can just go up to the sleeping loft. Probably the most difficult part about living in this small house is making the bed. So I just don't make the bed unless somebody's showing up with a camera. In which case I don't even really make
Jay Schaefer has become the poster child of the small house movement, and he's shown his tiny home to Oprah, CNN, ABC, NBC, The Today Show, The New Yorker. It helps him sell his book and his plans, but also to change the opinion of just what is normal for housing in a country where the average home could fit about 10 of his.
According to building code, you have to build to a certain size. You have to have a fairly large house in order to have a legal house. Those were really pushed forward by the housing industry and the insurance industries back in the 70s and 80s when profits were leveling off, and they figured, well, we can just sell more house if we convince people that they need them. So the housing authorities did take up these codes. You know, you asked earlier why I live in a small house. I think that if I didn't know that I wasn't allowed to live in a tiny house, I might not have ever done it. It just pissed me off so much that I was being told I couldn't live simply, that I thought I would try and see if I could. So there are ways, there are loopholes.
Show me what you're building.
All right.
Jay's activism isn't just getting noticed by the media.
Just been building ever since.
He's motivated at least one 16-year-old kid to start building a tiny house in his parents' backyard.
I saw it on Jay's website. The house reminded me of a tree house that I've always wanted to build when I was a little kid, but something that was just on wheels was just something way cooler that I could move and stuff. Like any other teenager, I want to move out. You can move this and park it and live in it whenever I want. And after college, I'll live in it, and during high school, hopefully I'll live in it, and yeah. Back here will be the shower will be on this side, and then there will be a composting toilet on this side. The fridge, it's a 2-door. There'll be like a dresser type thing right here just to hang clothes. And then on this side, the sink will be put up here. And then I have a outdoor camper stove oven. I got that from Santa, I guess, for Christmas, and it was what I needed, so it was a very cool thing to wake up on Christmas too. I've done it all. I framed it, put the roof on.
Did you have building experience when you started this?
Very, very little, but I took up wood shop my freshman year when I kind of started getting this together.
How big is this place?
Right now it's 130 square feet plus the sleeping loft. I had a mattress up here 2 nights ago, but I took it down so I could start insulating this area. Just a full-size mattress is what I use up here.
Do you think this is enough space?
Oh yeah, this is plenty of space. I don't think bigger is better necessarily. Bigger is too many chores. Plus, there's no mortgage on it, and living small means less bills. living big means more bills. So that's how I think of it. I don't want to pay big bills and be in debtor's prisons forever. And that's how Jay explains big houses. He just says they're prisons for debts, and I think he's right.
I couldn't tell whether Austin just liked to build stuff, or if he really was searching for housing security at this young of an age. But growing up in a town where the average home price is $500,000, it's natural to want to join the tiny house people.
It's a crazy area because the land prices have gone up so much. So it's not really possible to afford living around here, but you kind of do what you can, you know? There's steps right there. This is still a construction zone, but it's come a long way. It's a house that's mobile. For me, it just made sense because I don't own any land yet. Land is so expensive around here. Like, I don't have access to that opportunity. What do I have access to? The dump, to Craigslist. These are free windows, all of them. So in this house, there's no plywood because I couldn't find any plywood in the dump. And this is all first growth for old chicken coop. So this is from the barn, and this is an old chest from my parents. For me, living in a small space is simplifying for sure, because otherwise, I mean, I have to give myself a small space. Otherwise, it's so easy to compile stuff. This is like a 3-foot storage space all underneath the bed. And I built a shelf back there so like 6 milk crates can fit back here. So if I know I'm gonna be living with it, there's no getting around what I bring in. I was saying I traveled by bicycle for like 3 years doing street performance. And that was the bicycle I was on. So, like, this bag was my kitchen. This was my puppet theater that unfolded and everything. So there was a place for everything, you know. It's like, that had my toothbrush and everything in it. That had magic tricks. That's where water, tent stuff. Having the mentality where there's a place for everything. There's some peace that comes with it, you know, just knowing where the thing you're looking for is. For me, living in a small space raises consciousness about how much trash you have, your waste, what you're taking in, what you're giving out. My pillows are full of fabric because I sew. So I can if I take this out and start to sew, this area is like my sewing studio. But then I can put it all back in and it's my couch. And I have my sleeping bag and that pillow. Pillows are a great place to store things. Then I have all my clothes over there. And I've got books up here, but I'd like to have more bookshelf space. These I just screwed up really. I was just like, I need some place to put things. You know, same for these up here. Mm-hmm. This is my bathroom. This is my chamber pot. There's some pee in it. Yeah, it's a little stinky from the pee, but I just empty it. There's a 2x4 foot chopping block that's a table that I'm working on building right now, and it'll be on wheels so I can move it here or all the way back there. But I've had like 9 people in here hanging out, and they almost all spent the night here. And I was like, I don't have blankets for everybody. There's already 4 people sleeping here. This goes up to the loft. And this has a bed, and my roof opens. The whole thing comes up like that. And I had to design it so the ridge cap and the drip edges and everything make it watertight because that's obviously very important. It's potentially a whole second story. But it's wonderful, you know, and it's so lovely to wake up in some place you built yourself. Funny, a friend just gave me this book called Your Dream Home, How to Build It for Less Than $3,500. I built mine for less than $3,500. This was published 1950.
Okay.
So this is for building homes like that for less than $3,500. I feel like it's a house that's mobile, happens to be mobile, and that makes it, I mean, what we're doing is getting around building codes in a kind of way that's potentially dangerous. My home is illegal. I mean, if any of my neighbors had a problem, they could say, you got to get off, and legally, I'd have to move.
Stephen Marshall is the roadside salesman of tiny homes, and he's been building them since dropping out of Stanford in 1973.
I built my first tiny house when I was 21 and wanted to have a house. That sort of was my life dream, to design and build a house.
He now dreams of a time when small is legal.
Today my crew's over in Petaluma, about 10 minutes from here, setting up a little house as a backyard office. For the last 20 years, really, I've been the designer of the work, and I've got a crew that does it. And this one here is a house that we call a room of your own. The tiny house thing, it's mostly a media event right now because people are in the beginning of trying to understand what are the solutions going to be. So a lot of people are writing about it. Everybody's in the where do we go from here stage. And so a lot of models are being put forward. I'm going to quote a friend of mine, Michael Jansen from the Tiny House Design blog. I was on the radio with him this morning and he said, you know, the tiny house movement it's not a fad. The McMansion was the fad. That's the thing that came and is now leaving. And I don't think we're going to see any more of that except in the super rich who haven't got it figured out that there's better things to do with your money than build a big house.
Love the neighborhood. Actually, I live in the building that owns the land.
My friend Sue Chin tends to be in the middle of trends.
And we do the fair on the weekends.
She's been the face of MTV for a long time and runs a hip street fair in Lower Manhattan.
Do you want me to go through each booth or more general, right?
So when we bumped into her friend, the internet entrepreneur Graham Hill, I shouldn't have been surprised that he was only too excited to tell me about his passion for shrinking his life.
I believe that this century, the skill of the century is editing. And so cutting back on space, cutting back on possessions, cutting back on media, cutting back on friends. I mean, I think you've got to refine because it gives you a lot of mental clarity and a lot more space and a lot more flexibility, and it's also really good financially.
For Graham, living small wasn't an economic choice, but a philosophical one.
How many square feet is your apartment?
350.
And that's all a man needs.
Yeah, I think it's
enough?
yeah, I think it's good. This year I lived in a trailer, tiny trailer, a tent, and then a boat for like 8 months. So this feels spacious. This is the bedroom, and I happen to have a king size mattress, so I just got it and threw it in here. But it basically makes it very much a bedroom. We really have a culture of excess. And just to take a look at one thing, architecture has gone from 1,000 square feet in the 50s to 2,300 nowadays, average size of a home, so like 2.5 times as big. While families have gotten smaller, happiness levels really roughly the same. So we have excess, we're not any happier, and what you'll see again and again are people that sort of cut back and really edit their lives will find themselves much happier. You have to edit your life if you're going to go to a small space.
But I mean, edit also too, people use that in lots of design themes, you know, they all use the word edit in terms of like, okay, how do I make it better by making it actually less so.
Less is more. I really think like editing is a skill of this century.
Tiny apartments are the norm in Manhattan, though I had no idea when I discovered a woman living in 90 square feet, I would turn her into an internet micro-celebrity.
Okay.
So, it's 90 square feet, a place to hang out and read. There's no kitchen, but I've created my own little kitchen. You know, little fridge. So I have to food shop a few times a week because it cannot hold that much stuff. But in New York City, most people store their laundry in their stoves anyway. So toaster oven, it holds the bananas. The first night I slept in the apartment, I had a panic attack. I thought, when I first saw it, I thought, oh, this is easy. And when I actually went up to bed and I woke up in the middle of the night and there was the ceiling and I had a friend stay over because I thought I would fall out of the bed. When I woke up, there was the ceiling here and the wall on every side and I wanted to get out quickly and she was saying, relax, go slowly because you're going to fall. And so then I had installed a handle on the side and a hook. And then after that night, I have not had another panic attack and I love it up here. And at night, it's cozy. When you're up here at night and you just have the light on, and it's the only light, and I've got my reading, and I used to have so many books, but I've gotten rid of a lot of books. My sister gave me a Walden Pond, so he stayed in a little space. Got to keep that one. Just to remind me that it's okay to live in a small space and to write, and you know, he's my inspiration. You know, obviously I'm not in the woods, I'm in the jungle here in New York City, but it's just a really quiet, cozy little space.
Rent.
No, I don't feel stressed about rent. I don't feel a huge overhead. My father's a bankruptcy attorney. I think we learned early on you don't acquire what you can't afford. So he kind of instilled that in us.
About 6 months after I posted Felice's video,
It's 90 square feet.
it began to make its way around the web
I'm also a professional organizer.
and onto television shows.
Felice's internet tour of her Pipsqueak pad has more than 3 million hits on YouTube. Many of the questions...
While the rest of the world discovered Manhattan density, I found an even smaller place whose inhabitant didn't see his lifestyle as anything out of the ordinary.
My last place was 96 square feet. I think I was there for 2 years. I was thinking it'd be really great to have like a real kitchen, and so I did try to do the search for roommates, but most of the places with roommates, even in this neighborhood, were pretty pricey. So I kind of just swooped up this one when I found it. All right, so this is my place. It's 78 square feet in my Midtown mansion, if you will. So I pay $800 a month for this place. I guess everyone chooses how they want to spend their money. And of course I could get a bigger place, I guess. But first of all, I like the compact nature of it. And one of the same thing that I liked about my last place, you can just prop your feet up on the wall. You don't need an ottoman, you know? The smaller space you have, the more kind of critical it is to really be efficient with how you use it, and especially how you furnish it. Since I'm here a lot of the time for work, because I work actually from home, I don't like it to feel so small and so closed. For the bed, I gotta move the couch cushions. If you have a bed in the space, it kind of closes everything off. So I built the bed so that it could just kind of tuck away, kind of like a Murphy bed, but the other direction. And then it just hinges down. So this is the bed. Ta-da! It's super easy, and then when you're done, you just put it back up, and you've got your living room again. Here, I mean, again, since I can work from home, I don't have to have a lot of like office clothes, so I can fit everything. And my dirty clothes and another junk bin. Yeah, my bathroom stuff is just right here. I just kind of pull it as I need it. A couple books up there and my towel rack and everything. So it kind of fits just about everything I need. And then this is my microwave and my printer above that. I do have some dishes, so I can have cereal, I guess. I'm vegetarian, so I don't have to cook meat. I do make eggs in my microwave, which is kind of, everyone thinks that's kind of weird, but it works. I love cooking and stuff, but you know, if I get the hankering to cook, I can go to a friend's place, so yeah. So I usually spend my days looking at drawings and building them. So.
Of bigger homes.
much bigger homes, yeah. With storage closets the size of my apartment.
You see this as a sacrifice?
No, I mean, I guess everyone has their own compromises. I keep my tools under here. I have some of my winter clothes. Oh, there's one of my winter coats. I mean, in between this place and my last place, I was living in Kenya in a place that was like half the size of this, made of mud. So for me, this is, you know, this is like a big step up. So I guess it just depends on what you like. See, a lot of people would prefer living maybe in Astoria and getting more space for their dollar. I just like being close to my stuff. I mean, I don't see it as sacrifice. You know, there's just like things that maybe you don't have, things that other people don't have. You know, it's all kind of, it's a trade-off really. So you just make your decisions and...
Perhaps it comes with choosing to live in a crowded city, but I've met many Manhattanites, like Luke, who don't see a small space as a sacrifice, but as a style of life. After visiting Luke, I headed further uptown, where a school teacher had chosen to buy a small studio to keep things simple, but called on an architect friend to bring a bit of magic into his space.
So here's the cabinet fully closed, and perhaps the most interesting feature is the bed.
Initially, we were looking at different ways that we could start to sort of subdivide the space into kind of smaller spaces. But pretty quickly it became clear that there wasn't really enough room to get a real bedroom in here. And if you did, then there wasn't really room to have a real living room area. And Eric is a pretty serious cook, and so like a tiny little kitchen in here, that wouldn't really work for him. So we started to think about sort of ways that we could sort of dramatically increase the density of the amount of stuff that we could get in here by really creating sort of areas of overlap, where you get like a living area and a bed area and a kind of dining area and a lounge area, and they're not necessarily separate, but they're sort of leaking into one another in a way.
This door of the bed can be kept this way just to provide darkness and privacy to the bed on the other side, but it can also open up to provide light and air. And for that matter, this pushes in, and then this serves as a desk at this point, and we have storage for the desk. Then over here we have closets on this side as well. At this point, this is the bedroom here, whereas before it was the entertainment room, the living room. When I have guests stay over, these pillows come off and then you have a single bed here. So I can give my guests, even in this 400 square foot apartment, a relatively private space. Once that opens all the way, I certainly can't see on this side, and a guest can't see to the bed area, so there's some privacy.
I don't think that this is that unusual amount of space either. I think it's more a matter of being able to use the same amount of space for lots of different purposes that makes the apartment work.
I spent my first year out of college teaching in Japan, so I think Japanese sensibilities influenced my sense of space a little bit. I mean, this kind of works, this compact way. This is very comfortable for me.
Why do you think it works?
I feel the idea of excess space, I like everything being meaningful, and I feel in this particular sort of space, everything is meaningful. I suppose, I would be careful about any more linens. I have linens up there. Not that I need more. I like having to make choices. I do have to make choices. I like having everything for a purpose. And not a matter of just bringing things in because I have it or I can have it. I get overwhelmed by too much.
There's really an idea about how do you get more out of something smaller without having to make big sacrifices in terms of the way that your lifestyle is. In addition to not sacrificing, you hope that something like this enhances someone's life, that it doesn't just make something that is less better. More is more.
This song, I hope the French people know it. It was a top French pop hit of the fall of 1987. Alors, c'est l'amour. 1, 2, 3, qu'est-ce qui bouge les familles des époux? C'est l'amour.
When a friend married a Frenchman in a small town on the Atlantic coast, we found ourselves in a part of France unknown to most of the Americans in our group.
Take me down the rabbit hole, I will follow, I will go. Come and gather all your friends, join the fun, it'll never end.
Desperate to discover the area and film a video or two, I contacted a friend of a friend who I'd heard lived in a cave nearby.
Running faster, jumping higher, don't be afraid.
He agreed to let me come film, but he didn't have an address. After circling his town a few times, we reached him by phone, and he came to escort us to his hollowed-out dwelling.
Take me down the rabbit hole, I will follow, I will go.
It turns out that the Saumur region in France is famous for its troglodytes, or cave homes. There are thousands in the area, left over from centuries of quarrying the region's very malleable rock.
Il y a d'abord ils ont creusé le grand trou, c'est un troglodyte de plaine, ça s'appelle. Avec des galeries, des caves, comme celle-là. Et ils ont retiré la roche, les blocs de roche, pour construire ailleurs des maisons. Et après, les gens qui travaillaient là ont décidé d'y habiter. Parce qu'ils étaient sur le lieu de travail et en plus, ces habitations ne coûtaient pas cher. On allumait. Donc une famille vivait là. Une alcôve servait de chambre.
Vous vivez ici?
Oui, depuis 11 ans. J'avais arrêté de travailler, I stopped my work. I had no house. So I want to buy a troglodyte because I like this rock and this stone.
You like this?
a house like this is not expensive to buy.
To buy and maintain, but it's special, right?
Oui, pour le plaisir, oui. L'amour de la pierre, du roc. Oui.
Take me down the rabbit hole, I will follow, I will go.
Donc ce sont mes travaux d'aménagement personnel. Enfin, ouais, quand je suis arrivé là, c'était l'abandon total. Ici, c'était condamné même ici, c'était fermé là. J'ai fait les travaux, oui, enfin, oui. J'ai tout fait moi-même, oui. Et j'ai creusé le puits de lumière là-haut, là. Ça permet de voir clair et puis de faire de la ventilation, quoi.
Henri lives in what is the largest of the caves, but so much about his lifestyle feels hobbit-like.
J'ai fait cette porte, enfin ce passage aussi, là, j'ai creusé un tunnel pour aller dans l'autre chambre là-bas. C'est pour aller de cette pièce-là dans la chambre qui est là. Donc j'ai creusé là et j'ai creusé ici après pour faire communiquer, quoi.
Living encapsulated by rock would provoke claustrophobia in some, but for Henri, it just forges a stronger bond with the earth.
Tu vois cette pièce-là, je pense qu'elle a été trouvée ici. C'est un fossile qui date des dépôts marins de l'époque, quand l'océan était ici, quoi. Tout ça, c'est de la roche sédimentaire, c'est du dépôt marin. La roche d'origine, c'est l'époque du Crétacé, là, je ne sais plus. On va reviser, mais... À l'époque où la mer était ici, l'océan était...
Henri's home was limited by earth and history. But as we continued our travels through France, I found even in cities, history defines square footage. Bordeaux today isn't as well known as France's other great cities. But in the 19th century, its large downtown buildings were imitated to transform Paris into a modern capital. A couple centuries ago, the city was confined to the left bank. The right bank was more of a rest stop for those entering or leaving the city by horse and carriage. Today, it still feels like the other side of the river here, but there are hidden alleys that still preserve the flavor of centuries past.
Dans le passage, la particularité, c'est qu'il y avait ces maisons, là, c'était d'anciennes écuries. Donc les chevaux se mettaient au rez-de-chaussée, en bas, et l'écuyer, celui qui montait sur le cheval, habitait dans les petites maisons au-dessus. Voilà. Et en face, là, il y avait des écuries, avant. Et au siècle dernier, c'était des écuries. Voilà. Et ça, c'était un petit garage abandonné. Voilà.
My friends who saw that before I begin the works said to me, "It's impossible. You will do nothing with that. It's, you know, there is no light. There is nothing. You will never finish that." At the beginning, it was like that. So at the beginning, there is nothing.
Et c'était abandonné quand Jérémy l'a acheté. C'était un garage.
I think that a lot of people first look, say, "Oh no, we don't want that," because at the beginning there is nothing. Yeah.
Someone was selling a garage.
Yes, only. Without just perhaps electricity in one place, no water.
C'était un propriétaire qui, je pense, n'imaginait pas une seconde que ça puisse devenir une habitation. Pour lui, il n'a pas envisagé un instant qu'on puisse en faire une maison parce qu'il trouvait ça sûrement trop petit, mal exposé.
And you thought, oh, I'll live in a garage.
And I gave a call to Mathieu.
Jérémy, il m'a dit viens voir ce que j'ai trouvé, c'est pas trop cher, qu'est-ce que tu en penses? Et moi tout de suite, on a vu le potentiel. Donc pour la façade, hein, puisqu'il n'y avait pas de façade, hein, il y avait juste, il a fallu créer une façade. Là, on s'est inspiré des anciennes écuries existantes qui avaient des façades en bois avec des petits volets comme ça. Donc on a choisi voilà, de faire cette façade en bois, ce qui fait qu'une fois fermée, Jérémy peut bénéficier de la cour, mais en n'ayant aucune communication avec l'extérieur. Donc il y a plusieurs possibilités, ou c'est fermé, et il peut quand même vivre dedans parce qu'il y a le patio qui éclaire la maison. Ensuite, voilà, comme ça, qui elle ouvre vraiment l'espace sur la rue et permet d'agrandir l'espace intérieur par l'espace extérieur. C'est-à-dire ça permet plusieurs degrés d'intimité en fonction de la journée, de la saison. Les voisins. Le deuxième élément du projet, très important, c'est la création, la construction de ce gros meuble. Parce que l'idée, c'était de tout concentrer, il y a à peu près 10 mètres cubes de volume, de tout concentrer là-dedans pour libérer le reste de la place.
Donc aujourd'hui, j'utilise tout l'espace. Moi, j'aimais beaucoup l'idée de réussir à faire un seul meuble pour la vie de tous les jours. Et également le bureau, qui est le lieu de travail où je passe beaucoup de temps. Ici, avec la chaîne IFI également, tout est vraiment inclus dans le meuble.
Ensuite, on a intégré le canapé, et ça peut aussi servir de lit d'appoint. Quand on a des amis, ils peuvent dormir là, puisque ça fait la taille d'un lit. L'idée, c'était de tout ranger là-dedans, hein, pour plus avoir de meubles, plus avoir trop de meubles, quoi, hein, pour libérer l'espace. Donc on a vu l'extérieur. Maintenant, en fait, on peut rentrer dans la boîte. Hein. Il y a la salle de bain, hein, avec les toilettes et la douche. Voilà. La machine à laver, le linge. Une douche ici. Une toilette. Et derrière, le cumulus électrique pour l'eau chaude. Tout est utilisé. Toute la place est utilisée. Hein. Pas d'espace perdu. Donc sur la boîte... il y a la chambre, hein, l'espace de la chambre, avec donc le lit. Et puis sur le dessus de la boîte, on avait prévu des prises électriques, hein, pour mettre des petites lampes. Et c'est de ce côté, voilà, que s'ouvrent les placards pour les habits. Voilà. Voilà. L'idée, c'était vraiment de tout cacher là-dedans pour libérer l'espace, parce qu'il n'y a que 40 mètres carrés habitables, mais on a quand même une sensation de volume. Parce qu'on a, je pense, justement tout compressé dans cette boîte pour dilater l'espace autour, quoi. C'est-à-dire que la toiture, on ne pouvait pas y toucher, hein. Elle était comme ça, on ne pouvait pas monter, c'était interdit par le règlement d'urbanisme. Donc je pense que c'est un peu comme un nid, hein, comme un nid d'oiseau. On est perché, on peut pencher la tête et voir un peu ce qui se passe. Et puis quand on est assis, on est protégé, ça fait comme une petite barrière, quoi. Donc non, ça c'est possible. Je crois que vraiment ça structure le volume habitable. Hein. C'est comme une maison dans la maison, quoi. On en a pas mal fait, oui, de ce genre de reconversion comme ça, d'espaces qui n'étaient pas des habitations. Et nous, on trouve ça très intéressant, parce qu'on trouve que ça amène quelque chose en plus. La maison a une histoire en plus, quoi, de construire un logement sur quelque chose qui n'était pas un logement. Ça apporte une particularité atypique et plus riche. Je trouve qu'un espace créé ex nihilo sur un terrain vierge. Faire du neuf, c'est bien aussi, mais il y a une reconversion comme ça, il y a une complexité qui n'existe pas dans le neuf, je pense.
Barcelona is one of Europe's densest cities. About 16,000 people live in every square kilometer. And in the old town, it's been that dense for centuries. As the city has evolved, not much has been built here in the way of skyscrapers to add living quarters. But some of the now obsolete spaces of the past have been turned into tiny apartments. Catalan architect Eva Prats and her partner turned an old community laundry room into a small pied-à-terre 15 years ago.
This is the kitchen. This is an industrial kitchen. This is the bed. And when you open this bed, it goes all the way until the wall.
They call it house in a suitcase, and the entire apartment opens and shuts into two suitcase-type pieces of furniture. But it turns out it had a much more complex counterpart across town.
Crazy narrow.
Someone tipped me off on the project, and I was surprised to find that the owner was one of my first acquaintances in Barcelona.
100 steps. Yes. That's it. It's kind of like a house on top of a house.
In the 7 years since we'd first met, Christian had moved out of his rental and bought a tiny former pigeon coop, turning it into a magically transforming, hyper-modern flat.
That's it. This is my space. It only has 24 square meters. It's actually something you come in and you don't realize what's actually all hidden in the wall. It's full of surprise. My inspiration, boats. I had a look in a lot of boat magazines, and yeah, I got inspired by the fold-out elements and as well the practical, hidden away things. I thought I can definitely live in something like this because at the end of the day, what do you need for living? You need a nice, comfortable mattress and nice, clean sheets and running water, shower, and a stove to cook something. That's actually what you need. You don't need so much more stuff. When I open up the kitchen, it comes up automatically, without any help. For me, it was definitely important to have a proper functioning kitchen with the right size of a fridge, the right size of a freezer, because a small apartment doesn't mean I have to have like a 1 square meter cube fridge. No, it has to be comfortable. And there is enough space for plates as well, for cooking. And up here there's a microwave oven. It has got even a dishwasher, which is again practical. And this is really important as well, to have like your cornflakes in there, your cookies, your rice, your noodles. That's the kitchen. From there on, it starts the clothing area and the sports area, and which is again important to have enough space for all your stuff, and a nice mirror where you can watch full body. Not so good today. There is a lot of space. It's enough space for your tennis racket, for rollerblades. I didn't want to make a typical bathroom. The shower is like a glass cube. I wanted to have the bathroom being a part of the space. There's like all the products as well. It's not really a bathroom, it's like a glass cube and a cube box, a sink. And there you have all the products in here as well. Usually I have so many more products. The only hidden spot is important, the toilet. It's cozy toilet. It's the right space. You have enough space, and there you can pull out the magazines from here, which is really nice to have. I'm not really someone really being a homey person, but you know what? We just make a little salad. When I bought it, I knew I was a single person. I had a great lifestyle, lots of traveling, and maybe sometimes getting some visitors in. And the kitchen, it's really nice to cook as well. You can pull down the table and turn the whole thing into a big kitchen, you know. Get the support and action. It's kind of heavy, so you have to hold it on.
It's taken me time to adjust to apartment sizes here. This place is small, but it's not as newsworthy as it would be in the US. After all, the average home size in Europe is about 1,000 square feet, less than half the size of the average American home.
So Christian, what was your inspiration on this flat?
My inspiration? Some things are inspired by Japan. It had to be a Zen apartment, so.
In popular pricey cities like Paris or Barcelona, 300 square feet is surprisingly common. It's not seen as a sacrifice, but as an opportunity to own something affordable and a reason to get creative.
When I'm sick of having all the dirty stuff around, so I just close it down and the kitchen is gone. And then I can do whatever I want to do in my space. I always liked the nesting idea. I think it was when I was small. We had this huge sofa and I was just using one part of the sofa, pulled all my pillows together and I made my little nest and I felt really comfortable. And somehow this apartment reminds me on this concept as well.
Space isn't just at a premium in big cities. It's always surprised me how in Europe, homes aren't as scattered across the countryside as they are in the US. For centuries, towns were built as dense units for security and shared resources. And today the tradition continues with strict zoning restrictions protecting towns, countryside, and agricultural land. On a well-protected mountainside along the Valencian coast, I was invited to visit a couple who had bought land zoned only with the rights to build a tool shed. So they built a tool shed-sized home.
This small house it's supposed to be a volume to store agricultural tools for the fields that are around the house. It's what in Spain we call casa de aperos.
Working shed, like
yeah,
tool
that's
shed?
it. Yeah, it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be. For that reason, it couldn't be bigger than 25 meters.
Bueno, pues esto es una casa de aperos y como tal la tenemos. Lo único que hemos hecho es adaptarla para poder dormir.
What we try to do here is to use all the space and trying to leave free the central space. We have also a small kitchen, and upstairs we have a small bedroom which is hanging from the roof. Which seems that it's flying.
This helps us to have this more open space here.
Donde yo soy hay muchísima gente que son agricultores, ¿no? Entonces mi abuelo tenía su trozo de tierra donde cultivaba uva y normalmente cuando tienes un trozo de tierra grande, pues tienes una casa de aperos para guardar los aperos, porque los campos están fuera del pueblo, están a 2-3 kilómetros, no podías ir siempre a tu casa a coger los aperos, transportarlos, entonces hacían casas pequeñas de aperos para guardarlos ahí. Y como eran mínimas, el espacio se aprovechaba al máximo. Entonces siempre había un altillo donde se solía, pues por las ventanas se solían tirar las balas de paja o comida para animales, se guardaba aquí y luego por ese lado se tiraban, porque solía estar ahí la cuadra, ¿no? Justo en el espacio que quedaba ahí estaba la cuadra, entonces era fácil tirarle la comida desde aquí. Y un poco me recordó a eso, la verdad, que no pensaba que luego iba a ser tan similar mi vida a la de mi abuelo.
Y vivir, él no vivía en su casa.
Él no vivía, claro, yo lo he adaptado además para vivir aquí. Pues nada, la ropa, ahí hay una aspiradora, saco de dormir. Este, por ejemplo, nos encanta porque esta es la subida de la chimenea. Entonces aquí solemos poner calcetines, camisetas, calzoncillos, porque cuando te lo pones está calentísimo. Que se ha calentado de esta forma tan natural, ¿no? Aprovechando la subida de la chimenea. Bueno, pues una de las cosas que más me gustan es la chimenea con el horno encima. Esta es la comida de hoy, lo que ha sobrado. Y quizá estás aprovechando, por un lado, el calor que está dando la chimenea para poder cocinar. El baño es pequeño, pero que al principio hay que acostumbrarse. Justo esta es la medida para estar sentado, nunca de pie. Es mejor para la próstata. Y la ducha tiene las dimensiones justas, Tienen justo las dimensiones que puedes tener en una casa grande. Realmente a veces tenemos más de lo que queremos. En las casas de la ciudad y donde vives tienes espacios que no son tan necesarios. Te creas tú la necesidad. ¿Sabes? No, cuando estás aquí viviendo en una casa tan pequeña dices, es que es justo lo que quiero, lo que necesito. Lo demás es un extra que está bien, pero que tampoco me da más valor añadido, ¿no? La verdad es que no echábamos nada de menos de una casa grande.
I just love these little houses. You can see quite clearly 20 feet square. They're like little milk cartons you get in the cafeteria in elementary school, the same little cartoon shape of a little house. It's got everything you need. I like to talk up Donald McDonald, the architect, because back in the late 70s, he really understood that there's a problem with housing. These Donald McDonald houses, they're 20 feet by 20 feet. He bought this vacant lot, and there used to be just one house, one old Victorian there, but it burned down or something. And he figured how many of these little houses could he pack on one city lot? He made them out of really simple, inexpensive building materials like plywood, plain old aluminum sliding glass doors, asphalt shingles, nothing fancy. For $40,000, I think in the late 70s, early 80s, and they're worth about $600,000 now. And I just think they're charming. Now the ones on the corner are even smaller. If you look at the demographics for the whole country, we're aging. Most people are either old and their kids have left home, or they're young and they haven't had kids yet, and this is what they want. This is what the market is asking for. I love the one in the corner because you can see exactly how large it is. It's about 12 feet wide, maybe 20 feet deep. Maybe it's not even 20 feet deep. You just got a row of them in what used to be a single house on this one building lot. It wasn't like people haven't always been doing this. It's just that now people are actually paying attention to it. And I think it's because people have no choice.
Johnny Sanfilippo's love of tiny homes predates the mortgage crisis and the modern tiny house movement.
Yeah, even when I was in high school, I used to read all the architectural journals, and there would always be the big glossy spreads of the fabulous estates and skyscrapers, and then sort of in the back there'd be a one-page thing on something like this, quirky architect builds cute home, blah blah blah, so like a puff piece or something. But that really meets the needs of most people in a way that the big glossy spreads are never going to. So when I was thinking about what kind of a house I wanted to build, this was essentially my role model, except these were too big. These were too big.
Part of the American dream is that you need to own the thing that you live in. And I'm no different. I'm a self-employed housekeeper. I do gardening, I do painting, I do chores. I've never made more than about $20,000 a year. And I like it that way. You know, I went to university, I graduated, I got my degree, I went out into the world, I worked in a skyscraper, put on a tie, and I was completely miserable. And honestly, I wasn't very good at the stuff I was trying to do. And I went back to housekeeping. And I like it better. You know, it's very relaxing, there's no stress. I like the people that I work for. I just realized that owning a home was going to be a real challenge. If you live in San Francisco and you clean houses and garden and paint for a living. The problem then is, how do you own a home if you're very happy doing what you do for very little money? And I live in San Francisco, and you cannot buy a house in San Francisco, even if you have a really good job, you know, which is what most people struggle with. So I decided to come up with a split strategy. I would continue to live in a very small, affordable apartment in San Francisco, and I would buy a house someplace else. Then you have all these conversations with bankers, and you get all your documents prepared, and this is my income, and here are my tax records, and this is my savings, and they look at you, and you know, they're just, their eyes glaze over, and you realize, like, they're going to give me a lollipop and send me home, which is pretty much what happened. So I eventually found a piece of land that I could afford to pay for with cash. So I wound up in Hawaii. This was back when oil was $9 a barrel, so you could actually like get a flight for $99 one way. I found a perfectly nice piece of land, 1.5 blocks from the ocean, in this rural Hawaii, nowhere near anything, but it was in a failed subdivision. And I just paid $3,000 cash for this lot. I did it with cash with no mortgage. And it took 10 years, you know, and it's very small, but it's a very comfortable home. When you say you're going to build a small house, you get bad reactions from everybody. The county permit people don't want to sign off on a tiny house. Contractors don't want to build a small home because there's no profit. Banks don't want to process a mortgage for under a certain minimum amount of money. And also they tell you that nobody wants a small house. So if you default on your mortgage, they can't unload a small house, because who's going to want to live in a tiny house? And they're not paying attention, because a lot of people would love to own a home, and they'd love to live in a small house if it was a $50,000 house or a $30,000 house or even an $80,000 house, you know? So nobody in society thinks that a small house is even worth building. It's a problem. So I had to fool the county. I had plans drawn up for a proper 2-story family home. I said, now we're also going to build a detached 2-car garage in the front of the lot. And they approved that. And then I just built the 2-car garage, and I never built the house. And I got the inspectors to come, and they inspected the garage, and there was a septic system large enough to accommodate all of it. So there was no problem with health and safety. And I had the electrical panel put in the garage, and I had a toilet and a wash sink, a little powder room in the garage, which is legal, and a washer and dryer hookup and a utility sink. It's all legal. It's all inspected. Everybody was happy. And then when I was done with the garage, I just sort of sent them a note saying, you know, this is all I'm doing. I'm done with the project. We're good. It's 480 square feet, so it's 20 feet wide and it's 24 feet deep, and it is exactly the size of a 2-car garage. When you're living in a one-room space, you have to sort of decide, do you want a Murphy bed? Do you want to sleep on a pull-out sofa? You know, how do you want to make those trade-offs? And I decided, no, I'm going to have a giant table, I'm going to have a big bed, comfortable, and, you know, everything else is just going to work itself out. It's basically a studio apartment. If you took a city studio apartment and you plopped it in a tropical island, that's what it is.
My version of the American dream, it's not about having stuff, although I do have nice things and I like them. What I like even more is time. Time not to have to work to pay for a lot of crap that you probably don't really need, that you bought because you think you're supposed to have it. If you don't have a mortgage and the taxes are low, how much really do you need to keep going?
Like Johnny, my grandfather painted houses for a living, right across the bay.
We used to live down in that house down there with the little 3 windows up at the top.
My father took me on a bike trip through his hometown one day to show me his old haunts. But the place is now nothing like the fishing village it once was when he was a kid, and the Golden Gate would soon connect them to the big city. Now houses are big and expensive, but there are still remnants of the town's smaller and more alternative past here. While exploring the town's houseboat communities, I met a couple of liveaboards who both happened to have grown up with all the luxuries, but had chosen this much simpler style of life, and without regrets.
Buying a boat it's affordable, but it's also a lifestyle.
We're going to be making black bear pie here in a minute, if you would like to stay.
This is my galley, or my kitchen. It's a good spot. I have to have my boat pointing this way so I can drink tea in the morning and look out at the mountain and out at the water. There can be seals or rays or lots of seabirds. It's a pretty awesome spot to live.
Is this on?
Yeah, so that's working. I hear you. Good.
Okay.
I see you.
Heather Wilcoxon was born into a conventional fairy tale.
This is my new porch. I just remodeled it this summer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What did you get here?
Her parents were Hollywood actors,
Come on down. Watch your head.
but she left behind the glamour and the big house about 4 decades ago, and she has never been back.
It's something that I just fell into and fell in love with this boat. I fell in love with Delta Queen. She was built around the turn of the last century, and there were many boats like this built. They were cookhouses, and they were towed up and down the Sacramento River. This is the original companionway. You can see it here. And then you went down into the hull of the boat, and the cook lived here and cooked here. This is the companionway, so you want to hold on if you're a little nervous.
And how many square feet is it?
Maybe about 400 square feet. At different levels. I mean, that's all you need. You don't need a lot of space, and I'm so used to that. This is my little galley here, very simple. Ta-da. This is the bunk up forward, and this is really comfy up here, and so this is, closets. There's not much space for storage, so you don't have a lot of room for lots of clothes, lots of shoes. I don't get that stuff. It's not, you use what you have. These are all built in. This is all built in. I mean, there's some storage back in here.
That's great. You've labeled everything.
It says socks, underpants, hats. Just more that I don't need fills up my life with. Just more stuff that you collect and fills up your life. This is my son. This is my dad, who was an actor. He was a Hollywood actor.
What was he in?
Well, the last film he made was Caddyshack, and the first film he made was the original Cleopatra. He played Anthony. His name is Henry Wilcoxon.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Hollywood?
I did.
Huh. And you didn't want to stay?
I left there when I was 20 and never went back. I'm not the movie star kind of person.
There's some people who might look at that and think, okay, the American dream is to be in Hollywood and to make a lot of money, and yet you've chosen this alternative.
I never went for the mainstream lifestyle. Living on a boat, it's simple. I like the fact that it's simple. I mean, you can make whatever space you want yours. That's the magic of it. Everything I've painted, I'm kind of crazy about that. Give me a brush and I'm dangerous. This is where you can eat here, but I mainly, in the summertime, I live up on my porch, basically. I didn't show you my bathroom. We are hooked up to the sewer. My payments in the winter, my electricity is about $60 a month. In the summer, it's $12. Wow. Yeah. I hardly use anything. don't have huge payments. I'm not stressed out by a job. I make just enough money to pay for my lifestyle. I don't need a lot of money. A big house with 3 cars and 5 bedrooms and big payments. It's not what I'm interested in. I am so used to the water. I'm so used to living on a boat in a small space. I have so much light. I see the sunrise, I see the sunset. Not bad, not bad.
There's a song that goes, "It's moving day, it's moving day," and those are the only words I know to it. Thank goodness for you.
I went back to visit Jay Schaefer a couple years after first entering his world. I caught him prepping for one of his monthly open houses.
Thank you.
That's how you get furniture in?
Yeah, make sure we have a window big enough.
Oh, you brought books?
We've just finished building this house. We have an open house in about, half hour. And so we're gonna make it look totally finished by furnishing it. If you wanted to hang a few pots and pans from that rod, that would be cool. This is a really exciting day for me because I've been homeless in the sense that I haven't had my tiny house to order my life in for about 5 weeks since I sold my last one on wheels. That doesn't mean I'm totally homeless because I'm living in a 500 square foot house with my family. You know, for 12 years I lived in a tiny house of less than 100 square feet. And then I got married and had a baby, so we had to buy a 500 square foot house. And I've been essentially using that as my bunkhouse. Every night I go in there to sleep. But I still call this my house and the other house the family house or the bunkhouse.
Okay, great.
A bit before showtime, people began to line up.
Thank you. They came from Nevada too. Wow, I'm flattered.
Some had driven hours for a glimpse at Jay's version of a tinier life, and a man who had become something of an idol to his followers.
I'm Jay Schaefer, and I've lived in tiny houses for like over 12 years or so.
You're the one who lived at the grocery store. You parked in front of Whole Foods?
Yep. This is my new model, and it is 120 square feet, so it could be put in most people's yards without a permit, depending on your local zoning. This one would actually be only, as a shell, you could buy it for about $11,000. But then if you want to deck it out, you get the components for maybe a couple $1,000s each, the bathroom and the kitchen, and then you've got yourself a house.
He had a new, more affordable model, and his business was booming, despite, or perhaps as a direct result, of the now 3-year-old recession in this country.
You know how we take our shoes off when we go in our house? Well, this is someone's house. We lost our house due to the economy, and so we're thinking that when it's time to own again, we'd like to go with something that is practical and affordable and wouldn't be lost.
And you're a little one too, so it would
Hey, girly.
fit 3 into a...
Yeah.
But,
Oh, I love the smell.
One of
This is really quite spacious.
in the broad category is just a box bundle.
We're just sort of attracted by the fact that we could build it ourselves, you know. And, you know, definitely with her we'd need a larger model, but we don't really need much, and that we're kind of learning that lesson as we live.
That's my book. We sell way more books than we sell houses or plans. You know, especially when the recession came along, people couldn't quite afford the shift to a small house, but they could start thinking about how they were going to simplify their lives and live an affordable life.
Hi, Joel, that's good.
In this business, it's largely about just presenting the dream.
Nice little chandelier, yep.
We're really from all Texas.
Rolled out windows, storage.
A lot of people will never buy anything, and that's actually, I mean, it's really like house porn.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I can't sleep up there. No, I'm sorry.
People are intrigued just by the idea of house. So people are really, I think, intrigued by a small house because it's the essence of house. So it's like the naked house. I guess that's why I think of it as house porn. It's just like the essence of a house, you know, reduced down to its bare necessities. World's smallest bathtub, shower, sink.
Isn't that cool?
I'm sure there's some hype in the race to see how small one can live. And I know there are people here for the house porn.
What do you think?
I love it. It's very cozy. Like, I feel really comfortable, which is how you want to feel in a bath. And you could actually fill it up to here and you could be completely submerged even though it's in a small space.
But there's also something so attractive about this Lilliputian world. Not just physically cozy, but mentally enticing.
Well, my daughter had said it'd be cool to just be able to, everything you own, to be able to move with you easily.
Yeah.
And it made sense.
You know, the more stuff you got, the less liberated you are in a lot of ways.
There's something very American about small homes. It was a way of life for any pioneer. And some of our best-known countrymen grew up in very modest dwellings.
Right, Riley, you don't want to try and do her.
Don't do her. She's a lot. Get some.
Benjamin Franklin lived with his 11 siblings in a small home in Boston.
She wants a taste of it.
7 U.S. presidents, including Abraham Lincoln, grew up in simple log cabins.
Take the buckets off. Take the buckets. Do your normal stuff here, son. There you go.
My European husband asks, what do you get from growing up in one small structure? His answer, you get America.
Wow. So this is your house then?
That's it. I just finished chinking the bigger part there yesterday. And I bought a trailer load of fence rails. And then I just added on. Everything else is just parts and pieces I've gathered up around the ranch. Pretty decent.
Yeah.
For a bachelor, an old desert rat, it works pretty good.
Can I see inside? And show me?
Sure.
The spirit of hard work, the freedom of frugality. These are values easier bred in places where you know exactly where your worth comes from.
See, this is my kind of work area up here, and then my living area down there. Eventually I'll have it all done.
Where's your bed?
Outside here. Watch your head when you come out.
The Native American known as Geronimo understood the freedom of not confusing satisfaction with the size or shape of your shelter. He said, I was warmed by the sun, rocked by the winds, and sheltered by the trees as other Indian babes. Now I can eat well, sleep well, and be glad.
It's just really a fine shower.
I can go everywhere with a good feeling.
Yeah, I've been outside since 1974. This is the first time I've had a hard roof over my head for many, many years.
Yeah. And you liked it?
It's not for everybody, but by myself, it suits me very well.
Henry David Thoreau didn't grow up in a small structure. Instead, he deliberately chose to move into a 150-square-foot cabin in the woods, to live deeply, to suck the marrow out of life. All Americans have a little bit of Thoreau in them, or a little bit of Geronimo, or Huckleberry Finn, Laura Ingalls Wilder, Johnny Appleseed, or Jack London. We all still can feel our inner We the People.
I'm still finishing the interior.
It means something different to every American. But if we select this path, we can choose to live deliberately, to pare down our shelter, to confront just the basic facts of life.
Voilà.